seen earlier today, or do these players have specific picks? Like Rogue, for example, we've not seen on stream in quite some time. What are the comfort picks coming out for these players?
There's one of the styles that Rogue has been playing a lot, back in Vis Pro during the offseason was they played this style where they put Hammy on this late game CP mage, either Scarf, Celeste, whatever it was, and then played a double sort of bruiser style. Like it was a lot of Arden Kroll, Lance, Glaive, things like that weren't really upon being this hard carry, but setting up Hammy to be a massive hyper carry in the late game.
Yeah, and one thing to note is that we haven't seen any Black Feather prioritization on the North American side of the games as we saw on the European side. Although this game it might be different because Rogue, upon the original, it's one of his comfort picks. He plays Grumcha, he plays Koshka, he plays Black Feather, and he plays Rhyme. These are his top heroes, so if he gets on one of them, I would expect him to do really well. At the same time, though, this is an update that we haven't seen Rogue play on, and we haven't seen them play for a long time, like you said, so they could have an entirely different hero pool that they could pull off here.
Absolutely. Well, Finn is going to be the first ban coming out from Nova. That's not something I was particularly expecting coming on into this series, but Physics was actually tweeting before this series, I think a couple of days ago, saying that she was going to try and make Finn first ban meta. Well, it's come on through. Don't know if she can claim credit for that one, but Grace and Lyra going to be the first two locks.
Yeah, and the Grace pickup for the side of Nova, kind of forcing Rogue into that Lyra pick because you want to match a healer with a healer. I would also heavily expect there to be an Idris ban or pick from Rogue because we saw Truth at the Unified Live Championship with the Idris able to do almost magical things, like things that you feel like are impossible situations that he would go into and find like these double and triple kills constantly. So I think that's something that Rogue's gonna have to be very careful about letting through.
That pedal ban screams to me that they want to get Cruel, and Cruel is one of Pawn Original's comfortable characters too, where he can play really aggressive and dominate the enemy jungle. So I would like to see Nova ban it, because if they don't, I think they could have a lot of trouble if they give it to Pawn the Original. On the flip side, if they do ban it, Celeste would be open, but regardless, they ban neither, they ban Black Feather.
Yeah, I think Nova may be expecting that Rogue might be trying to mind game them, because you don't ban the pedal unless you want the Kroll, but sometimes maybe you ban the pedal because you want your opponents to think you want the Kroll. However, they did want the Kroll. They go for it. It makes a lot of sense. Like you said, Pawn the Original, this is one of the heroes he's known for, playing incredibly well. It's going to be the Lance for Nova. That's very likely to end up in Lone Delphi's hands. Back before, like way back before Lone Delphi was even in the Vainglory8, I was a big fan of him playing Lance when he was in Challengers. It was a really strong pick for him. He was able to make a lot of plays happen. And now, if they round this out with an Idris, I think that's a phenomenal composition for the side of Nova.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got that kind of double support style play where you've got two things that are going to be able to protect that hyper carry. And if we talk about hyper carries, Truth is definitely one of these players that loves to go into that style.
And the scary thing for me here is if they let Celeste through, that's the same composition that we saw TSM dominate on in Game 1 versus Stripe. Celeste, Cruel, Lyra. Synergizes very well. You have high range, long range, you have a lot of sustain, and you have the Cruel for peeling. And Lance, if he is the jungler, he can't get all the way through Cruel and Lyra to get to Celeste. So they really need to keep it in mind. And looks like they ran out of time for draft.
All right, so we'll see what the
maybe they couldn't
we'll see what the
decide.
situation is with that. I think we've got a draft bug going on. I do believe.
Yeah, usually it's usually a refresh, and then that takes care of it. But we'll see what happens. Maybe they just finish it off over the.
So apparently it is the Celeste that Nova are going to be locking in to round this composition out. There it is. It's picked itself up once again. And Rogue going to be looking at what they can do to finish off their own composition.
That's a very strong comp from Nova too, because you have the Celeste on the back line with Grace and Lance just there to support her and peel off Cruel from her. It's a comp similar to what G2 usually runs in Europe to just protect Hondor. This time it's going to be the Truth of Light doing that, and he's an incredible carry like we just talked about.
Certainly is. I feel like Truth of Light and Hondor have a lot of similarities in terms of their play styles and the teams that play around them as well. We'll see how he's going to do on that Celeste. It's something we know he can be successful on. Now, over towards Rogue, what kind of carry are they going to be looking for? Could it be something like the Scarf coming through?
I would say it almost has to be either Scarf or Idris, because you need to have that late game hyper crystal carry. And going with the Idris is actually, I like it better than the Scarf in this situation, because you want something that can get onto the backlines, onto where the Celeste is. Scarf doesn't have that capability. Everything would have just been body blocked by Grace and Lance. But going with the Idris, you know, he can use the Shimmer Strike and the Shroud Step to jump through and past those frontliners and get onto the Celeste to try and dish out that damage.
While CP Idris can do that, it's going to be very difficult for Rogue to do that against Nova's composition. Lance is going to be there, Gray is going to be there too to protect the Celeste. And Idris and Cruel, they just run at you. They don't have any jumps necessarily, or like Blackfeather, they can get through your CC. They just run at you. So if they had went for the Scarf, they at least would have been able to fight the long range game. And with Lyra, they would have been able to sustain up. But they did go for the CP Idris. I think it's going to be a matter of getting ahead mid-game, and then late game, make sure CP Idris does the damage.
Certainly, once we get to the late game, it's going to be kind of a skill matchup on how well these teams can execute. It's time to get on into things. Hashtag Vainglory8 on Twitter to let us know who you are going to be supporting. But it's time to get into Game 1 of Nova Esports going up against Rogue.
Well, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, we have loaded into the Halcyon Fold, and we have this incredible series ready to go for you. Nova versus Rogue. And Kieran, we got some fun things happening. We're going to have a little jungle Lance here.
Yeah, little jungle Lance coming through. That's very interesting. Taking a leaf out of Dark Potato's book, it seems like, for Lone Delphi. Again, gives them a little bit of early game aggression. Ganking is very important right now in VG2 because of, again, the lack of sustain. I love Starboy just zoning off away from this Elder Tree. In truth, had to burn that healing flash just to keep himself alive to take that. But again, 2-minute cooldown at the start of the game. Shouldn't get punished too hard, you would hope anyway.
No, he had to know that that was going to be that close, but man, he was walking the line there.
The combo between Grace and Lance is pretty good as well. You slow down that target for the Impale. Big rotation coming out from Rogue, though. Looks like they are just going to sort of wander back towards lane. Truth going to continue to push this lane up. I do agree with Iraqi. You're not going to see CP Idris functioning like a weapon power Idris, not trying to dive in there and get on top of the Celeste. But a lot of the way that you play the ranged CP Idris matchup against the Celeste matchup is finding ranged positional advantage and using mobility from the sigils and also your own mobility to get into a position where you're at least in basic attack range. Wait a second, though, because Pon actually found his way to the backside of the jungle onto Lone Delphi, but Lone Delphi's found his own target.
Yeah, Lone Delphi's doing okay. He was able to pop the flash. Now Evo pops his own. He's got the sigil. He should be able to get out of here. Lone Delphi actually threw a flare and scouted Pawn out, but Pawn was able to get onto him and apply a lot of damage. So a lot of really nice cheeky things coming out of these guys early on. You can tell they have a very good idea of what to expect out of each other. Delphi's in deep, and all of Rogue have dropped in here. They could have surrounded him, but they'll just go ahead and take the mids there. They secure that. They're going to secure their back. So a nice rotation out of Rogue.
Yeah, good cool head from Delphi as well. Actually brought Hammy out of lane, allowing Celeste a free back. She's even now going to be able to go towards the jungle and share some more experience and gold with Lone Delphi here. Because they were able to push that wave in, because Lone Delphi drew Hammy out of lane, it's a huge amount of time to allow Truth the opportunity to share this experience in gold with Lone Delphi. Not something that you would usually be able to do if you were sort of having an even lane matchup and Truth was just pushing things up or Truth was getting pushed in normally like he would do. He's now going to get back to lane and get that whole wave as well. So all from that sequence of events. Yeah, all from that sequence of events.
And the Impale will land on the Hammy, but he's doing just fine. You see the minion candy actually coming out of Evil here in the lane. He was trying to shove that lane up as quickly as possible, but Starboy, he did such a good job to hold that lane.
Yeah, really did, and that's something that Grace can do. She can slow down that wave, she can sort of bring it off to the side as well, and you've got that damage reduction coming out from your Holy Shield also. And let's be honest, the damage output of a CP Idris and a Lyra at this stage of the game is not a huge amount, but wait.
Impale's going to land onto Hammy, the core collapse as well, the Heliogenesis, the basic attacks, he gets knocked back to the wall out of Starboy, and first blood for Nova.
That's the gank sequencing between all of those Nova members. You have the Impale to the Holy Nova, you've got the Benediction slow, core collapse, the chain CC from this composition. If you land it onto a target is incredible. And remember, Pon has got to walk through all of that to even threaten Celeste. And if they can catch Hammy out, that's what kind of destruction can be sort of wrought by this Nova lineup. Rogue, however, they do have their own equivalent late game scaling. You know, you've got CP Idris scales just as hard as a Celeste does, but albeit a little bit more versatile in his positioning, but maybe a little less so in his flat out burst damage. You'd say that Celeste has probably got greater burst damage than the CP Idris does, and also better range has the Celeste, especially post level 8. That'll be something that I think Rogue will struggle with, because it will kind of force their hand, maybe force them to play a little bit more aggressive in these team fights, and it won't allow them to find the exact correct positioning to be able to navigate their way through the ridiculous amount of CC and sort of peel being brought over by this Nova composition.
I really like this. The mind games out of both of these teams is really good. Impale will miss out of Delphi, tries to land one up in the lane, but upon the original just making his rotation through, he just popped out into the lane. It forces flares out into the mustache brush, of course, from Starboy, but he wasn't even there because he was already gone. But he's just playing the mind games like, hey, I'm here and I'm out.
Interesting that this composition actually reminds me of the kind of Arden, Lance, Jungle, Baron compositions that we used to see maybe 3 or 4 months ago when Baron was in a really strong spot in the lane. I don't know if it reminds you of similar here, Humanist, but definitely feels like, you know, it's very much a Protect the Celeste composition in its entirety, and that reminds me of those Protect the Baron compositions that we used to see come out as well.
I feel like it will become Protect the Celeste comp, but I mean, let's be real. This Lance is going to actually do incredible damage.
Oh, yeah.
The Kroll, if he doesn't have barrier up, if he lands on an Impale and an attack onto the Idris, I mean, even the Lyra, you know, they're going to have to be incredibly careful. There's a lot of burst damage to come out on this Lance. And you said, you know, is he taking a feather out of our, you know, you said something like that of Dark Potato's book here. Delphi was like one of the few Lance players to make me like break the audio system a couple seasons ago.
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to have a jungler from North America, it's just that Delphi hasn't played it a huge amount recently. He's been more on that Samuel hype train. So it's just nice to see him bring it back up, whereas Dark Potato has stuck to that lance, you know, every given opportunity, even at the Unified Lives, we saw him play it. I love that by a little bit of micro decision making from Truth that was really good. He was very aware that Pon was level 6. He played a super defensive position behind his turret and now is invested into the reflex block. So, you know, he's very aware of what a level 6 crew can do to snowball things out of control. And I really liked the sort of safe way that he approached the laning phase there to not allow Pon the opportunity in that top rush to find a From Hell's Heart onto him.
Now, Rogue have dropped down as 3 onto the Gold Miner, but this means the Nova are going to be able to sniff it out. If they had left 2 in the lane, maybe Pawn could have done some work by himself. Solarstron's going to come down from the top. A nice Impale attempt coming out of Delphi, but they're too late, and Rogue able to claim that. So a nice objective picked up for Rogue here. Now Nova as 3 are up in the lane. I mean, I don't think they really want to get into any significant skirmish unless they land with an Impale where a core collapse can follow.
Yeah, you know, if they can chain their CC together, they have a really powerful mid-game composition, but if they can't, it's better off just waiting till you get level 8 on Celeste and playing the late-game Celeste field, and it seems to be where they're going for. Delphi building towards a Sora Blade, however, so he's not done with his damage output just yet, so he will always be a significant damage threat in some way, shape, or form. You know, we know how much damage that Lance can do with this build. It's a slow attacking build, all about the sort of the burst damage that can come through. I do like what Rogue did, though. They realized that if they're going to focus so heavily on rotating with Celeste to farm, we're just going to sneak this gold miner away. We're either going to force them to react and maybe we could take a fight, or we just get a gold miner for free, and that was really good from Rogue.
One of the things also I like about the Lance into the Rogue composition here is when Lyra throws down a Sigil, if people need to heal, they gotta sit on top of the Sigil. And it makes it for a really easy target to just land like a double Impale. Whoa, the Arcane Bastion, Bright Bulwark down. They're trying to play some games. Truth, he takes a ride through the other side. This is gonna be a boomerang. From Hell's Heart connects onto Truth. Truth gets Divine Intervention. Can he stay alive? No, he cannot. Pawn will be able to take that kill. Evil did a great job to keep his team healthy through that fight. He'll throw another Sigil out, and Rogue start to bear down onto the first turret. It's Delphi with a combat roll back, trying to apply damage, trying to buy time for his turret. And it looks like for the meanwhile, he's actually done so.
Yeah, Truth is now back up, but they've got one more minion wave to work with here. Rogue looks like they're going for it.
Yeah, Rogue, they're committing. They're going to actually take the turret quite easily. Bright Bulwark down again. Starboy, he's got to move back. Pawn's on top of him. It's going to be Truth with a defensive core collapse. Pawn's there, activates the Spectral Smite. And he's able to find that kill onto Lone Delphi. Very nice plays. I'm very impressed with Pawn here early on in this game.
I mean, he's playing Cruel, dude. Pon the original's Cruel is one of OGs. He's very, very, very good Cruel player, and you can see it right here. Knows exactly that smite damage necessary to take the people down. And already Rogue opened up with a very aggressive engage, and I think that's what they needed to do, because remember, you know, the later this goes, it's a little bit like the problem that the Tribe game, the Tribe roster had up against TSM earlier, that, you know, you play too long against the Celeste without a clear direction in how you're going to deal with her once she gets that extended range, the worse you're going to be. They knew that if they just portaled that Cruel in there, he provides the distraction necessary to allow Idris to get a good positioning on that Chakram or into position to start basic attacking the Celeste. They played it really well. But maybe, I don't know if it was positioning or a little bit of luck on their side, but unbelievable use of the boomerang on the Hell's Heart, pinpointing out Celeste as she accidentally ran through the portal as well. That was
It's
really nice
hard
to
to
see.
go wrong with a nice boomerang when things get sloppy like that. But yeah, obviously connecting onto Truth was the ideal target there. Pawn, clear out that scout trap for me, bud. They already rotated his 3 through that bottom shot rush on the left side, and he's hanging out there as well. So a lot of vision coming out. Starboy happy about that scout trap placement.
Over now, just need to try and turtle things up. One thing that we really saw from the Unified Western Lives was how much Truth really appeared as a superstar. This new sort of young player on the scene. Haven't really seen a huge amount of him. We saw a kind of inklings of him becoming a god in challenges. Wait a second.
Forward, bright board, Core Collapse comes down, but they're taking a lot of damage. Starboy is the focus thus far. Pawn, he switched target. He gets stuns up though. Truth trying to kite back. Truth getting a lot of damage. He gets the heal and he's able to stay alive. They turned it around. Hammy dropping low. They've gotten Hammy as well. Evil on the run as he watches his carry and jungler get melted in front of them. Oh, that's hard to watch. The Lyra doing everything she could to keep her teammates alive there, but that engagement absolutely backfired.
Well, okay, 2 reasons for that. Truth to God. Second reason is you portaled in to a corridor where Lance is just going to absolutely have a field day. Ithian walls right there were absolutely insane. Everybody portaled through onto a core collapse that was so wonderfully placed by Truth, and then the Githian wall came through. By that time, Truth had repositioned to a point where he was able to get a very heavily funneled Solar Storm off with that Eve of Harvest right now, giving him so much HP back, Humanist. Just really nicely timed sequence of events and just some beautiful mechanical play from Truth, just as we were talking about what a kind of almost young star that he's turned out into after the Unified Western Live Championships. And I've got to say, Delphi making use of terrain. Sweej always used to say about Lance, never fight Lance in corridors. Well, you know, it doesn't look like Rogue really held that one into account.
Was Sweej the one that said that? I thought Iraqi Zoro was the one that always said that.
Well, Rakizari is now Sweej, so...
I'm just kidding. Just playing games. Pawn, he's going to get slapped back from Lone Delphi with the Githian wall. You're right. Delphi had some nice Githian walls there. And they got to be careful where they're taking these fights in the map. Sometimes you see a juicy target like that Celeste out and you think you can just pop her. But yeah, Truth with the core collapse and everything was so nice there. Also, you got to give credit, of course, to Starboy, who was able to just hold the positioning in that fight in such a way that Kroll really didn't want to let off of him and onto the Celeste. You saw how much damage Starboy actually took there.
Starboy actually has had some really good timings of his divine interventions as well.
Another portal in. There's the engage. A core collapse blocked off this time. They're on to Truth. Truth, he gets the divine intervention. Healing, he's able to stay alive through this, walks through the portal to the other side. Solar Storm.
He's still alive!
Second divine intervention. I didn't even see the echo come out. A double kill for Truth. And Nova turned up to the roof. Is they're up now 5-2, 12 minutes in here. The echo completely turning the around. Starboy still has his fountain.
He's still got his bloody fountain, Humanist. He's wonderful use of the echo from Starboy. Oh my goodness, and Truth again with a very clutch ultimate to help boost that healing onto himself. Supernovas. Man. I mean, look, you're fighting Celeste and a Lance in corridors. What they want to find, they want to be in this kind of terrain. Supernovas are much easier to hit onto multiple targets when you bundle into these small enclosed spatial areas. And you saw how much healing those supernovas were actually churning out for Truth very early on in combination with that divine intervention. Remember, divine intervention reduces damage taken by 40% at its base value, then gets the healing afterwards. In that time, you've got the Eve of Harvest supernovas churning HP back for Truth. It's very hard to kill Celeste when she's getting these multi-man regenerations as well as that divine intervention use. You need to be a bit more open with your engages. You won that engagement in the lane because it was very hard to land multiple skills in on multiple members because you were all so split up, you had more space to work with. Every time they've tried to barrel in a corridor, they've lost.
Yeah, but they haven't seemed to slow up off that strategy yet, so it makes me feel like there's something to it. Nova as 3 will move forward here. You can tell that they have a clear idea of what they're looking to accomplish, rotating as a very clean unit, clearing out some vision. A lot of flares coming out from both sides, keeping track, keeping tabs of their opponents. not wanting to be surprised at this point, but Nova, with just a very simple rotation as he pushed the lane forward, drop down towards the shop. They've cleared out 3 scout traps, and that's a huge win for them in and of itself.
Over now, again, just scaling up 4 items on Truth, reflex block there. This is his maximum offensive capability on board now. This is not where you want to see a Celeste without having a serious advantage against her. And we know how well Truth has been playing mechanically as well. Nova have really come into their own as a team. They really outperformed, I think, what everyone expected. Wait,
From Hell's Heart, Starboy's going to be stunned up. The passage forward, the bright bulwark down. Can they take Starboy? Find an infinity onto himself. Now it's Truth trying to find the damage. The Helio's going Supernova. They're able to take Cammy down. Now looking for more. Delphi's going to boot forward. He's got to get the wall. Knocks Evil back. Doesn't find the stun, but they find the damage. So Delphi will pick himself up another kill there. The weapon infusion out for Delphi. Just doing work there. It was just the tension bow that Sorrow played right into the Aegis. And there's so much damage output still from this land.
Yeah, and I think also what was really important in that fight there is that they landed the From Hell's Heart onto Starboy. Immediately, Rogue was split in decision-making between, do we focus the Grace because she's unable to move, she's got very low base HP and actually quite squishy. Pond's going to have to be careful here, but I don't think anything's going to come of it. Or do we jump onto Truth? It felt like Hammy wanted to go onto Truth because there wasn't a Grace to save the Celeste this time with the Divine Intervention. And it looked like Pond wanted to go onto Grace because he thought if I burst her down, then it's going to be a 2 versus 3. I think the correct decision was to go onto Grace, but they didn't actually coordinate their efforts properly. And then a good Githian Wall from Lone Delphi bought time for that Divine Intervention to pop off, and that obviously kept Starboy in the running. Really, really, again, wonderful play from Nova, but maybe a little bit of miscommunication and miscoordination coming out from Rogue there.
Yeah, they're going to have to clean things up because it's going to get harder and harder. Pond, he's in deep on the backside. Core collapse, doesn't quite connect. Hammy, the basic attack's coming out. He's looking for the Shockman as well. It's going to be the root onto Pond. Pond moving back because he took a lot of damage there. He was able to pop his healing flask. We'll keep him alive and healing up. He's going to come run with the boomerang, but it doesn't quite connect as Truth has the nice positioning there. Helio's like, everyone heal! The Supernova connects. Able to take Evil down. Now looking for more. Hammy, what can he do? Trying to dance around the fight. Pond jumps in onto Truth. Hammy, he's on the Starboy. Starboy with the Divine Intervention to Truth. Pond stays on target. Spectral Smite buying a bit of time. Hammy left for dead. Hammy with a Shimmer Strike. Well, I don't think that's the place you want to be. He's able to get a kill himself, but that will be the ace for Nova. And ladies and gentlemen, that would be a Crystal Sentry and a turret taken about simultaneously. This team's on fire.
Oh man, they absolutely are humanist. Multiple things kind of started to go wrong for Rogue in that fight. They were looking for a flank play, and it was obvious that Pond wasn't willing to spend his ultimate to try and burst someone on the front line out. He was obviously looking to get onto Truth in kind of a surprise factor. The unfortunate thing was, Nova weren't surprised. They were very, very aware that there was a Cruel trying to get behind them, and they were peeling backwards, providing a barrier for Celeste. And then, something that Truth does, and a lot of Celeste players at the top level will do this, but it's really worth pointing out, when you're being threatened by someone like a Cruel, Truth doesn't kite away from the Cruel. He kites back over the Cruel onto the top of his existing heliogenesis to ensure that if Cruel wants to stick to him, he's going to land a supernova. That's a really sort of micro point about Celeste players and how they kite against some of these melee threats that always threaten them. I really, really like that Truth is obviously doing this continuously. It's really nice, clean Celeste play.
Super clean Celeste play at this point. Also, Evil just not really tanky enough to deal with the Supernovas coming out at this point. We saw him just get chunked down. I was about to say the Helio was doing tons of work before the Supernova came through and killed him. It's really hard for him to stay in through these fights. Not the tankiest, but he can sustain his team. Arcane passage forward, bright bulwark down. They're going on Truth one more time. Core collapse. They find the stun. They get the wall as well. Pond dropping low. Evil as well. The Fountain is going to come out. The Shimmer Strike from Hammy. Hammy dancing around, trying to fight the damage. Kills a lane minion right in the middle of it all. Core collapse comes down. Hammy is just toast in the dirt at this point. Pond's going to try to come around with the boomerang. It's a self-divine intervention out of Starboy. Lone Delphi finds the impale, the damage, and it's going to be a double kill on the backside for Truth. Well, actually, Pond stays alive. He's able to take Starboy. I flipped the camera back over there. Forgive me, scoundrel. Pond's still playing games, but this looks like it's going to be the end here. What a cruel. Delphi just buying time over here on this land. Solarstern's going to come through. It cleans him up for the ace. Truth just right down the center, throwing the strike with that Solarstorm. And this is going to be Nova taking game 1 in style.
I like the way that Delphi basically said he wasn't going to kill Pond. He could definitely have killed Pond a lot more quickly there, but he knew by delaying the death timers, it gave him the best opportunity to keep Truth pushing with that Kraken to win the game. Iraqi Zora is right. you needed to win the mid-game here as Rogue. You have a Cruel, kind of a mid-game god. They had the opportunity. We saw a couple of glimpses of those winning fights in lane, but they needed to take hold of the mid-game and run with it. They kind of lost their momentum, and that allowed Nova back into the game.
Yeah, that was a tough game. The double Atlas Pauldron out of Nova. Super clean play out of everybody there. But to break that one down, we'll go ahead and throw it over to Munchables and our analysts.
Something about Celeste today, man. 9-1-3 for Truth, just tearing up yet another game. But it has to be said, Nova, as a unit, just phenomenal this game. And I mean, I was talking to you backstage, Bacon. This team just consistently improving every single time we see them.
Yeah, they looked so clean in this match. There were so many fights that could, like, the engagement looks like right off the bat, you're like, oh man, this is a great engage for Rogue. Like, they're going to be able to take this. But then all of a sudden, the play from Lone Delphi on this Lance and then Starboy able to keep the carries alive, they turn these fights around. This was one of them where right off the bat it looked like Rogue had the edge, but then all of a sudden there's multiple Githian wall stuns, multiple impales coming out. Truth's able to escape out the backside, and before you know it, it's Nova that has the advantage.
And that team fight was the first team fight that Rogue won and took over the game afterwards. And the reason why they won it, it's very crucial. Grace had just picked up her Echo, so when the engage happened, not that they only engage on the Lance in a choke point where his Githian walls were hitting, they engaged on a Grace that just picked up an Echo that healed Celeste twice, and they just couldn't kill Celeste. And when Celeste was staying up, she dealt the damage that she needed, and she won the game. Rogue did an incredible job of getting ahead. They just needed to not play reckless like they did.
Yeah, and honestly, the Echo on Grace is one of the biggest power spikes, I think, of any captain in the entire game. You've got to really be aware of that. The next fight was another ace coming out for Nova around 16 minutes into the game, and this was really significant in terms of just control of the map.
Yeah, this one, it felt a little sad right off the start of it. You know, as soon as you see a From Hell's Heart get thrown out like that and you know it's not going to connect, your heart drops a little bit because you're just like, well, there goes their only course of engaging onto their opponents, just out the door. And from that, it's just an easy cleanup for the side of Rogue. They do lose out on Starboy there for his only death of the game, but again, they got the ace and were able to clean up.
I mean, they got a sentry, they got a turret, and they got a Kraken off of that fight. So I think they're happy to willing to trade Starboy for 3 objectives off the back of it. It goes back to what we were saying earlier. If you can turn those fights into objectives, that's how you win these games. Now, there's one final fight that was kind of Nova finishing things off. Zora, do you want to talk us through what was happening here?
I mean, at this point, Rogue just couldn't do much because at this point, Nova's composition is extremely strong. Celeste dealing a lot of damage. Lance and Grace are very effective at protecting her. Rogue doesn't have much to do. I actually instead want to roll it back and talk about the early game because when Rogue weren't finding aggressive plays to get ahead, Pawn the Original actually did an extremely smart thing. He went for the gold mine around 6 minutes to get some sort of an advantage. And the reason why he was forced to do that, something that maybe not so noticed, Truth was sitting in lane next to the turret every time his team was not close by because he was expecting Cruel to gank. And there was one time where Cruel came up with a tension bow, level 6, trying to gank, and Truth did not give him that opportunity. Pawn the Original and Rogue did a good job finding an opportunity to get ahead. They just did, as I said, needed to not play reckless. You have a CP Idris who can scale late game and do really good. Don't give the advantage.
And a lot of the, like you said in the early game, the very first rotation is something that I really want to talk about because we saw it was Rogue pulled all 3 members down to try and chase Lone Delphi. He's on this Lance. He ends up getting away. But during that whole sequence, like they had been putting pressure onto Truth. During that sequence, Truth was able to clear out the wave, recall back to base. Rogue ends up losing multiple minions to the turret, and then Truth is able to go back to base, top himself up, and then duck down into the jungle and get some extra farm through the ambient gold with his team. It was one small little thing in the very early stages. It was the first rotation of the game. Ends up making a massive difference because it goes from Truth being pressured in lane to now having the advantage.
Yeah, and being able to push that further and further across the course of the game. Now, as we head towards game number 2 in this series, what do we expect to see in the draft? Because, this Protect the Truth composition worked absolute wonders for the side of Nova in game number 1. Is that something that needs to maybe lead towards bans or picks just to deny this kind of same situation coming through for Nova again?
I honestly don't think Rogue needs to do that. They got a really good draft because, again, they got Cruel on Pawn the Original. This is one of his strongest characters. They could have played better with it. They did well, but then they gave away the advantage.
Yeah, all they really need to do is not let Grace through. I mean, teams are constantly letting Grace go through. She is still obscenely strong. Like, yes, sometimes you can take a win off her, but for the amount of games that she has played in, her win rate is insane. And Rogue, they understand that now. They ban it away, although I don't like it as an A-side ban because you could always take it instead, but they do get the Catherine at least.
Yeah, well, the A-side Grace ban just means, like, we want Catherine unless you're willing to ban it away. But Baptiste is going to be the first pick coming out for Nova. This is so characteristic of Nova. Starboy loves to play this as the captain, and Delphi's more than happy to take it into the jungle. Taking away the Celeste and the Black Feather, though, definitely focusing on different hero pools, not just those of the captains.
Yeah, and they didn't feel the need to either pick or ban Lyra because Catherine was already picked up, so you can just let her through. She's not going to be too hurtful. If anything, you can pick her up and play Baptiste in the jungle if you wanted to. Glaive, that's probably going to be hammy on Glaive in lane. It's one of his strongest characters too. He can apply a lot of pressure in lane and in mid-game. If they get a slight lead, you'll see him bursting people down very quickly.
And I'm a little bit surprised by this draft moves actually really quickly. Jewel Rhyme. Oh, man. I guess it's a variation of the triple stun, but that is a very different composition from anything that we would have expected.
I mean, Jewel is actually one of the characters that we forgot to talk about because this is one of the characters that have seen a lot more play in 2.8, especially on the European side, but we see her here in North America too. She has a very high burst damage, and she's very strong in lane pressure.
Let's talk about the fact that this is likely going to be a weapon-powered duel going towards the lane as well. Rhyme is basically only ever CP jungle, right? So the only other time we've really seen this was Best Chuck last season. And can I just point out, he played it, what, 3-4 times? And annihilated every single game it was played. Obviously, it's not Best Chuck playing it here today, but we've seen the potential of this pick and how much you can dominate a game if you take a small lead. And small leads have been kind of the story of today, just picking it up and managing to snowball that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who it's going to be up against. With the Sky and Glaive, both of those two can go either lane or jungle. I kind of expect it to be a Crystal Sky just because you have a Glaive, unless they're going to run the double weapon composition, which could come out here. Although I don't really agree with doing it against a Rhyme who can build so tanky.
All right, Zoro, very, very quickly, what do you make of this duel pick?
I think it's going to work great with the Catherine. I think Rogue will probably take this one unless that Glaive pick ends up coming through really strongly.
All right, well, we'll see if that's going to happen. Hashtag Vainglory8 on Twitter. Let us know who you are supporting, but it's time to pass it over to our casters. Once again, Excoundrel and Humanist, take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Munchbles. And that's right, we are live, loaded into the game, ready to go here. And Excoundrel, we have a Jewel on the fold. I am very excited about this.
We have a Jewel, a Rhyme, and a Catherine. That's a really interesting composition. Very burst heavy if you can land that stun or a root onto somebody. Truth is on the Sky here. They already caught out Evo very early on.
Evil taking a whole bunch of damage, just sitting on that healing flask. If he's able to get that off before he actually dies and the healing can come through, he can sustain himself, stay out there on the fold pretty well. Actually, the Iron Guard contract doing work for them as they move forward. Starboy is going to have to be careful, just throwing out his bad mojos, keeping a very nice range. But yeah, you can see Truth feeling pretty good on the Sky. I'm excited to see what he can accomplish here.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's going to be CP, because if it's a CP Sky that scales into the late game, if Truth plays well, this should be Nova's game. Wait a second, though.
It should be. Elder Treant's going to go the way of Rogue, and now the chase is on. It's going to be Rocket Leap forward. They stun up on to the Baptiste there, coming through with the Thunder Strike. Starboy just healing himself up. Healing Flask is pretty good.
I feel like the majority of this composition is going to hinge on Truth on this this Sky, but obviously we know how good Starboy is on this Baptiste. Starboy kind of popularized the Echo and kind of made it a bit more of a regular item. He kind of brought it for the very first time out, I think, in the VGA on this Baptiste especially, and it was something that we saw him play quite frequently before. The Echo was kind of like a staple item for a lot of these captain players. So a lot of disengage coming out from Baptiste, and a triple melee composition is going to be vulnerable to a double Baptiste ultimate, especially especially, you know, if they block the first one, you've still got to worry about the second one. They're all going to be within range of it. They're all going to be getting it full force, especially if they're trying to barrel onto one target. So keep your eye on Starboy. His disengage potential could be very strong this game, and then we'll have to see how Truth performs from that point forward. But again, majority of this late game is going to come from Truth.
Whoa, Evil taking too much damage, knocked back by Lone Delphi, and first blood to Nova. A very clean play. And to your point about Starboy and these Fearsome Shades, double Fearsome Shades coming out, I think that it's going to be clutch, crucial for them, because Hammy will be able to blow this guy up once he gets into the late game here. Actually, Lone Delphi, the Ordained is down. Delphi's going to move in with the Afterburn. The Rocket Leap's going to come through. He's stunned up, was able to reposition himself there. That was a dangerous situation.
Yeah, but obviously if you Rocket Leap, you still break the Ordained, but you don't get stunned until the end of your animation. So you don't get stunned in the air, you actually complete your Rocket Leap animation, and you're able to then, or your Rocket Jump animation, you're able to then sort of be in the safety of your turret. So it's an ambitious move there. I think they were relying on Hammy not using that jump to get out of the Ordained and then looking for a good opportunity for the Afterburn, but I think, again, maybe a little bit too slow on the trigger there, and that allowed Hammy the escape. So good move by Hammy to keep himself thoroughly safe and sound. He's sitting on a lot of gold right now. It is going to be the CP Sky, so Truth just taking the Weapon Blade early on. You do get a scaling on your forward barrage for slow if you've got a little bit of weapon power behind you. So he's maybe got a little bit of the slow in the early game that allowed him to take some favorable duels, but also helps him with last hitting as well, obviously. Weapon power Sky favor, or you know, any weapon power is going to help you with your basic attacks last hit also. But it is going to be the CP Sky. I imagine it's going to be a Frostburn CP Sky as well. It's going to be very good against almost every member of the rogue composition. So again, I like this very much from Truth.
Yeah, you're basically trolling yourself. A lot of times if you don't have a Weapon Blade on that Sky, trying to last hit in lane can be very difficult. The Sky should do great into the Catherine, so I'm excited to see how that plays out. But the whole time, like, if he's able to actually be landing damage, it's because Starboy and Delphi are controlling this fight. If the Jewel's able to get on target, both the Batiste and the Sky are incredibly squishy targets. And I mean, I was actually very shocked that we haven't seen, even to go through the last few updates, too much Jewel. Because the burst damage that comes out of a weapon Jewel is insane.
I think if you play perfectly Humanist, playing Jewel relies on, for me, like, Jewel relies on enemy positional errors more than anything. Because she's only got that one gap closer, and everything else beyond that is a little bit more harder to pull off. A nice Suri strike.
Oh, that's not what you're looking for. Hammy under the turret, he's gonna go down. Actually, that's even a fountain coming out, and a complete disaster for Rogue. I guess I caster cursed him there, but I mean, I still believe in the Jewel.
Oh, absolutely. If you can get onto Truth after he's just used a Suri strike, you can land at least one or two of those Thunder Strikes, you're gonna hit like a truck, buddy. You are gonna absolutely shred.
That was such a disaster. Like, Valkyrie got used, the Rocket Leap underneath the turret didn't connect either. Rogue are really forcing it here. I feel like they just need to clean up their shot calling, and maybe, you know, if you feel like you're gonna be out of position, they just gotta call it out to each other and not commit like that.
Truth does pick up the Frostburn, so there we're going to start to see the huge slowing effects on these triple melee carries. Position is really important in lane. You can see here, Rogue are trying to buy time for the turret. They have got a very quick turret shredding team, especially with this duel. They get given any sort of time on this turret, they're going to go to town with it. Pawn?
Truth? You say pawn, I say truth, but they're going to call the whole thing off. Hang around here. Rogue looking to apply pressure onto the turret if they can apply a little bit of damage, but Truth, all he has to do is kind of catch them with that Frostburn. Delphi, you're in a bad place. Defensive Afterburn, Starplay using the Ordained to hold him in place. Bad Noja is just continuously being thrown out of Starboy. Rogue have Nova pinned down underneath this turret, but I'm not sure that Nova really care too much, besides Truth being kind of low on energy.
I think that's the main point, though. Truth can't clear these waves very quickly, and, you know, the more and more time they get... Oh,
he's stunned up, and Truth is taken down. Jewel actually, I think, picked that one up with a Thunder Strike there, so a nice play from Rogue.
Again, no energy to Suri strike. They knew they could just rush in, and, you know, that's the problem with the CP Sky. That's why you need to invest quite early on into energy regeneration, especially against the triple melee, because it is very crucial that you have the ability to land that Suri Strike and get out of harm's way as quickly as possible. I'm wondering where he's going to go. He's maxing forward barrage here. That is pretty much the accepted CP Sky max now because of some of the damage reductions that took place to non-locked on targets. But I often into sort of a heavy melee compositions where I'm expected to kite often. I often actually like to max the Suri Strike because you get it off cooldown more quickly, but your damage will be severely limited because of the way that the lock-on bonus works now.
Yeah, I hear you. I think he's gonna need to be able to dance around in these fights, but it's kind of like if you get caught, you're just absolutely caught. And there's a lot of ways that they can go ahead and lock him down there. So just connecting with the forward barrage could be a really big deal for them. It's also a huge jump when you get the overdrive. That last point really boosts the damage on that.
Starboy is now level 6. He has not got a Crucible online for Evil yet, so there's a small window of time where Nova are going to be safe, you feel, for the most part from these engages, and they'll be able to protect themselves against the siege onto this tier 1 turret here. Starboy working towards what looks like his own Crucible. Obviously, the Blast Tremor could be pretty impactful in these fights, so he's going to need to be able to block that up. And then I imagine Echo will be very shortly on the cards after that. You can see how much Nova are investing in anti-things, just clearing these waves as much as possible. Truth here, close to finishing up the Eve of Harvest. He looks like he's going to share the backs, but they have to be very careful about their positioning here, Humanist. If they leave it too long, this could be a turret going down.
Yeah, it could be, but Rogue has dropped down as well, so there's not going to have that pressure up in the lane, and at least it shouldn't come too fast with the clear speed back here between Truth and Delphi. Looks like Truth getting into the Eva Harvest second item, but that means it's going to kind of delay that significant damage output till he goes for that Broken Myth. We actually even saw the Clockwork, his third item earlier, being played out. What's your preference here this game?
Clockwork's going to give him the ability to kite way more often. It makes him almost unkillable, especially against this triple melee. So it depends what he values more. If he thinks that he's going to be all right with the mobility that he has, and he's going to be relying on the damage output, then Broken Myth definitely. But Clockwork just makes
Big red button from downtown. Roger moving in. Valkyrie connects on to 2 on the backside. Delphi trying to frontline for his team. Fountain will come out, keeping him alive. Now Evo afterburn back. The turret's still alive. Evo doing his best, throws his found out at the last second. A very clean job by Evo there. And this should mean Rogue able to take this turret down. The Winter Spire connects. That's the second burst of damage coming through. 320 damage takes that turret down. Now Starboy walks forward. He's stunned up. Winter Spire is there. Truth just throwing that forward barrage from max range. Pawn is the one that's low on energy this time as Nova start to march forward here.
Yeah, Pawn with no energy and regeneration in his kit at this point in time. No batteries or whatever. Evo does get the stun.
Yeah, a nice Suri to go ahead and dodge out. Death Mode is going to go down. Rogue cannot chase. Lone Delphi, though. Oh, he goes down from the tick damage from Pawn, the original. Pawn's like, here, take a little tasty treat. Doesn't matter if you have to bring yourself out of there. Suri strike over the mid. Truth able to get the regen there. Connecting with the forward barrage, applying the Frostburn. It appears that Starboy and Truth are considering the chase here. Ordain lands onto Evil. They don't really have enough information to safely move forward. See, the forward barrage does connect there. Scout trap will be cleared out. Now, if that was a Nova scout trap, they absolutely pull the trigger there and go for kills.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pawn, Shatterglass paying off here, Humanist. That tick damage actually getting what people often forget that about Rhyme's kit, by the way. The tick damage is actually a pretty integral part of how he can deal damages, over time. And so I really like that, just having that Shatterglass, it really increases that damage output. There's the ultimate coming out. Doesn't get the kill.
The ultimate coming out of the weapon Jewel. Evil finally stunned. Starboy's quite low. The Valkyrie comes down on the top and puts Starboy into the dirt. Truth over the top of the Suri strike has the forward barrage. It was a blast trimmer. It had nice aim coming out of Evil, but not the intended effect. Delphi hanging out. Just let him know, hey, maybe I'm teleporting, maybe I'm not. If you want to start on this gold miner, they're going to have to respect the fact that Truth and Delphi are hanging around here. Roger taking it down. They're doing a pretty good job at this point. Delphi, it looks like he's thinking about it, but he's not going to. Nice stun from Evil there at the end. 400 gold each going the way of Rogue.
Yeah, nice pickup again. They have oh, that's a 403 crit.
Yeah.
Tyrant's Monocle already out for Hammy. Got the lucky strike too, and that managed to slam down onto Truth again. Sky, not one of these carries that realistically wants to build much armor, so it's all going to be about Truth's positioning in these fights. If he gets caught out by even 1 or 2 of these Thunder Strikes, he's going down, baby. He honestly won't be able to survive. So again, you know, like I said, he's working towards the broken myth here, Humanist. This is him saying that he thinks that his positioning without the use of Clockwork is going to be better. He has maxed the Suri Strike, by the way, over the forward barrage. Seems to have changed his mind halfway through to picking up points. Some people do like to put a number of points into forward barrage first before maxing the Suri Strike, but I do agree maxing Suri Strike is more important against the triple melee composition.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense here. Definitely interesting, though. We'll keep our eyes on how everything plays out as far as the next ability points going out. Delphi almost getting caught down in the jungle, playing with fire. At this point, we are almost 12 minutes in. It's 3-2. Net worth advantage does go the way of Rogue, as they were able to, of course, take down one turret. They got the gold mine, so they have a little bit of a lead here. I'm really excited to see how this weapon Jewel is going to continue to play out in Scoundrel, because it's starting to really hit that huge burst potential.
Yeah, he's got the attack speed now as well, so shorter cooldown on the Thunder Strike can start to slam them down more and more often. It's all about finding the right catch onto Truth, who hasn't got a reflex block, by the way, so even if he just steps a little bit too close to the Catherine, even if he gets caught out by a root coming out from the Rhine, he will go down in an instant. It's such a risky game, and Truth relying specifically on his ability to outplay his enemy at this point in time with little to no barrier for success.
It's a very bold move, Scoundrel, to not pick up the reflex. But I mean, one of the things I'm thinking is the reason he's not doing it is because he's been behind in CS this entire game. Like, Truth has actually been quite a bit under-farmed at points. Now he's catching himself back up here. Hammy does still have the lead, but Truth just feeling like, dude, I need to have this damage output. Otherwise, it doesn't matter if I'm able to survive with one reflex.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Lone Delphi right now is a peel machine for the Sky. He's never going to be, you know, instantaneously threatening one of the enemy carries. He's literally there to either reposition or isolate a target for Truth. It's all about the Truth game at this point in time, a little bit like it was with the Celeste. He is going to still got the healing flask though, so item-wise and slot efficiency, he's kept that up. The healing pretty important. There's the ultimate. They're zoning away.
Evil does have the Echo. We'll keep our eyes on that gold miner.
Immense gold payout collected.
Immense gold payout, 309 gold each. So just stacking up money in the bank at this point. And Hammy hitting like a truck. I mean, even Lone Delphi on the glaive, like if he overextends, it's just gonna take like 2-3 basic attacks, two thunder strikes. This glaive will go down. But Truth will absolutely get shredded.
Yeah, again, no armor against the Jewel means you've really got to rely on your dodging skills for the most part to bait them out. It's a pretty significant gold advantage at this point in time because, you know, global objectives all going in favor of Rogue. But Nova look like they're playing the turtle game, just trying to do a classic old TSM, trying to get towards the late game. As you see, the reflex block now picked up for Truth, and he's picked up another crystal bit here, which to me would just say that he's not going towards that clockwork build that we sometimes see on Skies. No, sold it, boys. It's going towards the clockwork build that we sometimes see on Skies.
Trolled.
I got trolled by Truth.
Oh, it's all right. We all got trolled. My brain started working. I was like, oh, what's the call? What's the play here, Truth? And of course, Truth just having a little fun here. They're not playing minions. That's not the afterburn you were looking for. Delphi. Gotta be careful. He did pop his Aegis off there. Evo. Quite a bit of damage coming out of Truth with forward rush. He's got 6 broken mist stacks at this point now. Sky is definitely at a point with the broken mist stacks. You have to be careful if you get yourself out of position. You get caught with the death from above, which is going to come up in just a second here. Pawn's actually going to boot back. Rogue find himself in a bad position. Stun will catch Evo on the edge. Death from above splits Evo off. One blast from a couple to go. Evo throws the fountain, stays alive. Hammy's he's in. He's on target. He's onto the Sky.
He's doing some damage.
He's able to get one. Now on the backside, Delphi. He's getting chopped down by the Rhyme. He's able to afterburn over the wall. A big red button coming out wild from Hammy, but Rogue just absolutely turning it around. And Kieran, right there was the power of the weapon Jewel. You want to play games? Let's go.
He had the boots up as well. He jumps in, has the reflex block, runs straight at Truth, who felt that he was untouchable. I gotta say, Starboy maybe a little bit late to the trigger with that fearsome shade. It might have been used to greater effect to try and peel Hammy away instantaneously, but my goodness, that damage coming out shows you exactly why you have to always consider where a CP Jewel can actually land. They shred through the Kraken. It is a weapon power Jewel. It is a weapon power Jewel after all, and they shred through that Kraken. Oh, now it's all on the defensive for Nova.
Dude, okay, how about a round of applause for Evo as well? Like, he evaded that one out. Waits self-fountain just at the last second, stays alive, lands a blast trimmer as well. Oh, Thunderstrike, 482 damage coming out. The turret just gets melted here. Big red buttons are just style points. They're just like little tickle ability that he can throw out, but it's kind of playing mind games at this point. He's just throwing it off cooldown, sometimes clearing out some lane minions, but Rogue marching down, choke point turret, dropping low. Evo finds the stun. Rocket Leap over the top side. Truth, 3 strikes, 3 position. They're doing a good job. Some turret down. Kraken's going to be losing quite a bit of health, and I'm be surprised if Rogue really does actually hang around here. Not just a Thunder Strike. Fearsome Shade should completely cancel that correction off.
Yeah, he used the original Fearsome Shade to disengage for Truth, echoed it out to allow them to take down Kraken. Kraken for 2 turrets. It's what we generally consider about equal between the 2 teams in terms of gold income. A little bit of an advantage going over to Rogue, but they also have the ability to open up that choke point now. They've got opened up more of the map. They've allowed themselves to expand into the Nova side jungle as well, and that means that there's a lot more pressure on Starboy to maintain that vision control. And you can see in terms of item slots, he's really holding on to that healing flask. And how interesting is it, Humanist, that we are seeing a lot of these players hold on to healing flask for a very long time in these games. You know, we're getting to 15 minutes and players still have it in their inventory. We know it scales up so well. It's a scaling healing item, but you know, Starboy prioritizing it over a scout trap placement, a slot.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bold move, but it's an incredibly good item. He'll have to be careful about that, though, as it could come back to bite them in the butt here. Maybe also the point that he's not able to actually get out on the map to apply scout traps down for vision. So at this point, Flare is the big priority, having something to keep himself alive. And I think also the fact that the Batiste is just really not the tankiest of captains.
No, absolutely. Gives him that shield, gives him that healing, allows him to find opportunities to cast that Fearsome Shade, which is going to be so influential. The problem with not having scout traps, though, is you're always playing blind on the map, so you've got to be using those flares on almost every brush to make sure that you aren't getting caught up by a face check. And, you quickly run out of those if you're flaring every single brush in the game. And you can see Starboy already gone through 4 and realistically hasn't really advanced the team up the lane or even into the map a little bit too much. And with Kraken spawning in the next few seconds, you almost feel like Nova are going to be pressed to do something here.
I feel like we're going to game 3. I'll be real surprised if Rogue aren't able to end this one. Someone's about to get murdered. Hammy has double Tyrant's monocle. This is where Jewel is just a whole bunch of fun. And we'll see how this is going to play out. Nova cannot afford to get caught out. So much pressure on Starboy to connect with these Fearsome Shades, to block off Blast Trimmers as well. And we'll see if they can do it moving forward. What's crazy here is that we've almost like forgotten about Pawn the original. He's 2-0-1. He has a very nice build himself, a huge threat. There's just so much damage coming out of Hammy and control out of Evil.
Again, Lone Delphi's gone for a breaking point here. Feels like he's going to be playing the sustained war game against this Rogue lineup, which is interesting because if I was Delphi, I would have said, Sora plays enough. I'm going full defense. I'm here to peel exclusively for Truth. And all of my sort of win condition would have been placed on Truth himself, and everything that I do as a glaive would be specifically there to help peel for him and get the jewel away from him, or find targets for him to set up for the lock on with the forward brush. Look how quickly this Kraken's going down though. My goodness. Can't let this go over. It feels like it's going to be a 1 game if this goes straight over to Rogue.
Weapon Jewel's pretty good. They're moving in here, but with a slight delay, they're going to be too late here. Pawn drops a Valkyrie. They just able to zone Nova out. Very nice job. The Blastomer connects onto 3, and Hammy moves in, just going full ham, living up to his name. Truth kiting back with that forward brush. They have to respect it. Respect it, boys. The broken min stack Starboy stunned up, chopped down, and this is Truth against the world. Truth, show us your mechanical abilities. If Rogue give you the opportunity, Rogue will move forward. Evil finds the sun, and Fury Strike is there. Winterspire comes through, big red button, and he turns around, but Pawn takes the kill. It's an ace for Rogue, ladies and gentlemen. They'll be marching forward and looking to close out game 2 here.
That's a big old goodbye from Nova as Rogue secure their 2nd game in the series. There was so much relying on just a single member of the Nova lineup to actually be able to carry this game that it made it very difficult for him. You had to play specifically around that win condition, and if one foot was placed out of a position, if you missed one reflex block, if you missed one Fearsome Shade, if you allowed Jewel that opportunity to get in there, it was going to result in a bad time, and you saw their Truth didn't have that perfect position necessary. His team wasn't able to peel for him at the utmost level, and there you go. He got shredded every single time.
Yeah, well, we haven't got to see any Ozo Scoundrel, but we got to see some Weapon Jewel, so I'm quite happy about that. But to go ahead and break this one down, let's go ahead and throw it over to our analyst desk.
phenomenal performance there coming out from not only Hammy but also the entire team from Rogue. But that weapon duel did absolute wonders for them. Huge amounts of pressure coming out across the course of that game, but also just huge damage. The amount of the crit numbers that come out from a duel later on in the game are quite frankly obscene.
Yeah, and I think Rogue, the best thing that they did in this game was choosing their spots so wisely. You know, this wasn't a high kill game. This wasn't one where they steamrolled over their opponent by just getting this massive lead and just continuously building upon it. They chose their spots. They just played the game very intelligently and didn't go for an all-in fight unless they were extremely confident in their ability to win that fight.
All right, now, Irakizari, I want you to talk to me a little bit about the early stages of the game, because this dual pick for Rogue really helped them layer on the pressure.
Yeah, and it's clearly now that this is the strategy Rogue are trying to go for. Get a pick that can allow you to get ahead by applying a lot of pressure. First game was the Cruel, this time is the Jewel, and it's very noticeable now that some characters can just apply that pressure stronger than others. Sky Weapon Power being one of them, this is another one, Jewel Weapon Power, and you could see throughout the early game, she got CS advantages, they ended up getting a kill, a lot of map pressure, and Rogue played to their win condition correctly throughout the early game.
Yeah, but it wasn't like Nova just kind of rolled over and allowed that to happen either. They were definitely being proactive.
Yeah, they were really being proactive. They picked up the glaive specifically so that they can gank and counterplay, so that if they get the kill on Jewel, they remove that pressure. It's a very high level of Vainglory that we're watching, honestly. Constant counterplay going on from both teams is very interesting and beautiful to watch.
Yeah, and then there was a large team fight happened around the 14:45 mark during the game, just before 15 minutes hit and the Kraken entered the map. Bacon, talk me through what happened here.
Yeah, well, this was an instance where it looked so good for Nova. Evald kind of baiting this out, holding his fountain for so long, and then once a lot of these lockdowns, the Afterburn was used, there was one of the Ordained was on cooldown, and the Death from Above was on cooldown. They then say, okay, we have this opportunity, we can throw out the silence, Jewel can jump in, and we can prevent them from being able to turn that fight back around on us. And once Jewel gets onto the back line, if the escapes and the lockdown and the peel are not available, you're just gonna melt.
That's where that terrifying damage comes in that we were talking about. When you see that Jewel jump at you and you're playing something like a Celeste, you see your life flash before your eyes. Let's take a look at the final fight of the game as well. This was where Rogue managed to take control of the Kraken and then the rest of the game as well.
And this is a result of Rogue doing a much better job than last game, where once they got the lead and they got ahead, they didn't let it down. They played it very precisely and they played it carefully, where they snowballed slowly instead of just trying to get a team fight to win the game. And they ended up with a huge goal lead at this point, where it's 19 minutes, 20 minutes. Nova doesn't have much to do. They're just very outscaled when it comes to the goal. Rogue closes out after this team fight.
Yeah, beautifully done by Rogue. They do manage to finish things off, and that means that we are one apiece in this series now. And both teams, when they've got their way in this towards the start of the game, they've managed to gradually push those advantages. And I think a key thing for both of these teams is, like you were just saying about Rogue there, neither of them getting overzealous, neither of them being overconfident, making kind of cocky moves and throwing away these leads they've had. They've both been very consistent, well-played games where they accept the lead that they have and use it appropriately.
Yeah, and it's smart Vainglory is what I like to call it. It's basically just knowing that you have an advantage and knowing that you don't need to make a flashy play. You don't need to make almost a desperation play, which a lot of teams, when they get this large lead, they will make those plays that almost are like the kind of play you would expect a team that was way down behind to try and make. And it's instead they just say, okay, we have this advantage. If we just continue to put the same level of pressure on, we're just going to maintain this lead and not allow our opponents to have that opportunity. It's a very safe play. It's not the most thrilling in terms of kills and KDAs and things like that, but when you're all that matters at the end of the day is getting the points for the victory, and that's one of the best ways to go about it.
Yeah, I believe we have some highlights as well of Hammy, as he had an amazing game there on that duel, did some wonderful stuff, and his average kills are almost 5 per game, but 30,000 damage done across the course of that one. I mean, you can kind of expect that just because of the sheer damage coming out on each individual hit on that duel, but Hammy definitely played a blinder on that one. I want to talk about what to expect from him coming into this next game of the series as well, because you mentioned that he's playing this role where he needs to put pressure on the lane. What other picks are available for him to fulfill that similar role?
I mean, at this point, Jewel is very obvious. Vox is another one that we haven't seen quite work because Vox doesn't do a lot of damage, but he can apply the pressure by just shoving in the wave constantly and dealing damage through that. But we haven't seen anyone execute it so far. So I think Jewel, Celeste is another pick. It's not as much about the characters as much as the team playing around it.
Okay.
And as long as they play around it well, they can execute with it.
All right, well, we have another first ban Finn coming on through here. Catherine going to be the response, and then we have Grace and Lance locked in respectively. So fairly standard. I mean, obviously there's that Finn first ban is kind of out there, but across the course of today, it has started to become a little bit standard.
And I do like, again, the Lance pickup. I love going for flex picks with your first pick. We've already seen that Starboy can play this. We've seen today that Lone Delphi can play in the jungle. They ban away the pedal. This is leading towards a Kroll, but Rogue just not going to allow that one to happen.
No, certainly not. So we are going to continue with the draft. We'll be able to bring that up for you guys. But once again, we see that classic. You ban Petal, we have to ban Kroll immediately.
It was actually Rogue the same. It's the same strategy as first game where they ban Petal and want to get the Kroll, but Nova this time takes it away, but it lets the Black Feather through. And this Black Feather can either be weapon power or CP and can be lane or jungle.
And I really love that Rogue did this. By baiting out the Kroll ban, like I said, it allows the Black Feather through. That basically takes away the Celeste pick for the side of Nova, which is what they ran in game number 1. Obviously, they can still go with the Idris Grace. We've covered this so many times over the last season or so of how strong this duo is. You can have that ability to dive in, use the mobility of the Idris to its full potential because you'll have those heals coming out from the Grace.
Absolutely. Now Nova looking to round out this composition. They need to be careful not to go for full melee composition because we've seen things like the Rhyme coming in across the course of today and just doing terrifying things.
They don't have too many weapon power jungle options. If that's going to be a CP lane Idris, realistically the only thing left is Glaive because Skrull is already banned, Black Feather's taken away, unless they break out maybe Alpha. Here's the thing, the new item that gives you energy when you auto attack works actually great with Alpha because it synergizes with her heroic perk, allows you to come back faster when you're rebooting. I think it's a character that's being overlooked. If people look at it more, they might pick it, but it's Glaive, like I said.
It's going to be Glaive locked on in, and there's the Rhyme that we were just talking about. So, heavy melee on both sides of the board here. This could be a very messy game coming to your screens.
Yeah, it's not quite the triple melee because the Idris is going to go to Crystal Power, which gives him that range, but still a very short attack range.
Yeah.
So the Rhyme is a smart pickup here into this composition, but we'll see if they can go into that mid game with a lead. That's the thing that is crucial for Rogue. They need to have an advantage going into the mid game because if they are behind and the CP Idris starts to come online, it's going to be game over.
Yeah, let's talk about that early game aggression once again, Zoro. Where do you think, which team is going to be on the accelerator here?
I think it's going to, there aren't any characters that can apply it in lane. CP Idris and Black Feather both need to scale. It's not your Sky weapon power or your Jewel, so it's going to have to be the Glaive with the afterburns.
All right, we'll see if that's going to be able to happen. Let's head on into game 3. Let us know who you are supporting. Hashtag Vainglory8 on Twitter. It's Rogue going against Nova. Game 3 is underway. Excoundrel and Humanist, please take it away.
Well, that's right. We do have Game 3 between Nova and Rogue. These teams have been putting on a show thus far. And as our analysts broke it down, things could get quite messy, Excoundrel, with all this melee here on this map. What are your thoughts?
Well, we talk about how Rhyme is good into melee heroes, obviously like Glaive. We've seen TSM demonstrate that in their own right, good against Starboy's Grace. But Grace is pretty good into triple melee herself. She has that Holy Nova, which is more likely to hit targets that are grouped up in one location, which a triple melee composition usually is likely to be. And you do have the ability for Truth to be, super mobile on this CP Idris. He's likely going to be able to kite very easily. And I think that's one of the, again, this is a composition that is now very much reliant on Truth's ability to scale up and have the late game carry damage output that we know that he can have on this particular pick. Rogue are not looking to be scared in the early game, though, as they're trying to cut off that easy route back into the lane for Truth.
Yeah, these guys playing games early here. Rogue not really going to catch anybody out where they can follow up with a kill, but they do have control over the middle area of the map. Truth's going to walk forward, Pawn's there. He's able to get the chilling winds. Truth taking a whole bunch of damage. Shroud steps his way out of there. They turn it onto Hammy. Hammy should be able to reposition. Afterburn over the top from Delphi signals that Delphi's going to get himself out of here, porting back. Rogue will able to get the Eldritch Treant on the spawn, so they're a good job from them. And nobody's gone to lane yet.
Nobody has gone to lane yet, Humanist. You are exactly correct. I also think that a major advantage is gained by Rogue there. Like you said, Elder Treant worth a little bit more in terms of gold and experience, and Hammy's going to get his way to lane a little bit earlier too. He's going to get the lane CS and lane experience over.
Oh, he's got the minion candy too. I don't know if he pops this here, but that's a big wave.
A massive wave to work with. Truth has got his own minion candy. Will miss out on the large minion there.
Oh, what a
Pretty
loss.
good start.
This is a
Pretty
big
good
wave,
start.
though. There's that minion candy. Oh, these guys are here to party. Starboy jumps in. Addiction, having a little bit of fun. Delphi thinking about maybe an afterburn, but he's just not seeing the opening. Plus, with the minion candy on all those lane minions, like, if you start to just trade there back and forth, that's a huge amount of damage that you'll take.
Yeah, it's also a lot harder to judge when to last hit against minion candied waves, and you can see Truth already struggling slightly with it here. You know, they have that little bit extra HP, meaning the turret does a little bit less to them, and means it also messes up the general pattern of actually last hitting it, especially in the early game. You know, the general pattern is, you know, one hit on a ranged minion from the turret, then you last hit it. Two hits on the, or 2 to 3 hits on the large minions, and then you end up last hitting it. With the minion candy, it really messes that pattern up and makes it a little bit more difficult, especially when you've really not picked up much early weapon power because you've only got that book of eulogies, making it a lot harder for Truth to actually land those last hits. You can see he's 12 to 22 right now, so falling behind ever so slightly.
Yeah, he's definitely falling behind. Also, you know, we have Delphi who's just ticked over to level 4. Oh my god, it's hard to get that one out. But Pawn has a serious level advantage. He's taken the Elder Treant twice. So he's going to get to that level 6 quite a bit quicker. And we can see that Valkyrie come out and play a huge part in these fights, especially if people clump up. Chill Winds is there. Delphi able to afterburn his way out. But you can see that damage is actually pretty significant coming out of the Rhyme.
Yeah, I mean, if Rhyme can get in range, Rhyme does huge base damage. That's one of the things that Rhyme is very good at. He's got massive base damage on his abilities and, you know, fairly limited scalings. Nice dodge by Truth there to stop himself getting impaled up. But it's all about Rhyme getting into range, which is why you see a lot of Rhymes go for early tier 3 boots over that of what you'd see most on most carries, just because they need that extra movement speed and the ability to reset that movement speed in a fight to be able to stay on top of their target, especially something that is as slippery as a CP Idris as Truth overextends.
Yeah, a lot of damage here. Gethian wall back. Truth just hit the Chakrams flying, but you don't really have too much damage coming out. He's able to get the healing flask off, so this does mean that he should be able to stay in the lane here.
Yeah, and Hammy didn't have his feint up. He used it to actually close the gap immediately onto Truth there. It didn't have that execute potential. Had he had it up, he might have tried to look for an execute onto Truth, who gets rooted again.
There, Valkyrie not going to connect Pawn. Wishes he could have that one back. Starboy with the double. Holy Nova. Holy Nova. He's going to throw that fountain out, keeping his teammate in fighting shape and canceling off any aggression coming out of Rogue here. Rogue drop as 3 down to the shop. It'll be the fountain finally coming out for Evil here. So these guys do have a bit of an advantage there now.
I don't know if anyone's played against Weapon Power Blackfeather right now, but he's in a really good spot, especially with the rise of Scarf and Celeste. Weapon Power Blackfeather thrives in those situations. It's not quite as easy for a Weapon Power Blackfeather to function against the CP Idris. Idris has got, you know, mobility in his kit. He's got his ultimate to dodge out, you know, your feint or whatever else you want to throw at him. So he has got a bit more self-peel and self-protection than the likes of Celeste or Scarf, but still not an awful pick into him. You can still stick to the CP Idris fairly easily as Hammy. I'm wondering where Truth is going to go. Is he going to be a bit more Cavalifar-like and go for the Frostburn, or is he going to stick up and go for that Shatterglass for the straight-up burst damage? I personally, Humanist, I know it might be a little bit against the grain, but I do personally think Frostburn... I think Frostburn will be better, just in this situation.
I'd agree with you, actually. I think it would make sense. I think it would make sense to have some Frostburn here, though. It doesn't matter, though. If Hammy's able to get on target and blow you up, though. Truth, he's just biding his time. Please let me into late game. I want my items. As he's thinking this, it's going to be a Shatterglass coming out for Pawn. So, very nice item spike there for him.
They've actually rotated to the back camps, and, you know, Rogue are now looking for an opportunity to push heavily onto this first tier turret here. They know that Starboy is the only one protecting, which gives them the indication that the carries are away. But
Dude, Pawn has more last hits than Truth right now.
Damn. That's impressive.
Damn. Yeah.
I mean, if you've got a jungler that's out CSing your laner, that is certainly quite impressive. I think that speaks more to the volume of how much Pon has done here.
Afterburn, but into the impale. Lone Delphi, you put yourself in a bad place. Get the wall. Delphi chopped down first blood. It's a disaster for Nova. Starboy couldn't do anything. He's going to catch him with the Holy Nova there. Truth able to dodge out any damage, and my goodness, Nova suddenly in a bad position.
Truth. He picks up the but he picks up the Shattered Glass. Okay. I mean, look, go for the burst damage, but you don't have that kite potential without the Frostburn. It's simply a matter of adaptation as to whether you think it's going to be worth it. By taking the Shattered Glass, you're saying that you think your straight up burst damage is going to be what wins you the game. But personally, I think it's going to be that ability to kite backwards, slow down those melee carries and use the broken myth stacks to end up winning you. But hey, I mean, what do I know? I'm just a caster.
That's true. What do you know indeed? I feel this all the time. But no, honestly, we'll see. If they lose the game, maybe you can tweet at them and tell them, hey, man, maybe a Frostburn would have been better.
I'm never going to tweet at a pro player and tell them that their build was wrong, because they obviously have a reason for their build.
Well, we have Twitch chat, right? They heard you talk about it, so maybe 1 or 1,000 of them will all tweet it out if it doesn't go that way. Truth taking a bunch of damage, Shroud step backwards, Delphi trying to be on the front side for his team, but there's nothing happening here. Just has to defensively afterburn. Underneath the turret, Rogue applying damage, holding their ground, move forward. The Impale's there, the damage coming out onto the turret. They're doing pretty much everything they want at this point. Winter Spire 1 and 2 connecting. Turret dropping low. Benediction in, Pawn dropping back, using the healing flask. Delphi onto Pawn, Pawn throwing the Winter. Spire's there, they have damage. They found Delphi looking for more. Truth under the turret. Hammy, he wants him. Is Hammy gonna fully commit? That Chakram just flying back and forth. Truth doing a good job to swing that one around through these fights, but this is going to be Rogue taking the turret. I don't think anybody dies off the back of this. If anyone, it's going to be Truth. Truth hanging around this dangerous place to be, my friend. Starboy forced back, doesn't have a fountain. Pawn will show mercy as he lets him go. This is Rogue up 2-0.
Truth made a move there that made me feel like he could be lagging Humanist. He kind of walked directly into the enemy team and then had to burn everything to escape. So maybe there is some small connection problems going on for Truth.
That's again. What I do when I'm losing too.
Yeah, same. Again, I'm going to reel off the line. Players are responsible for their own connections. So, if Truth is having issues, then obviously, hope he gets them fixed quickly. But it did feel like that maybe he was having some lag issues there, which might explain why it's not been quite pinpoint precision that we know from Truth. The Celeste game was beautiful, but maybe things have sort of spiraled a bit since then. But a Rogue off to a very good start, again taking a turret. Now they can look to prioritize things like that gold miner, which is fully stacked. They've hit some pretty big item spikes. You've already got the breaking point open for Hammy with that Serpent's Mask. You're working towards the Eve of Harvest upon the original. Interesting that Lone Delphi went for the Tension Bow, don't you think, Humanistic? Personally, I think that Poison Shiv maybe first would have been better. Limit that sustain coming out for the Rhyme?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second as Starboy just gets deleted. Truth turns around onto Hammy, but they just jump right over the top. Pawn able to find the second kill there. They're not even giving me an opportunity to respond here, Kiernan.
Well, that's a gold miner. If you wasn't going to get a gold miner before this, it was definitely a gold miner now. And Lone Delphi trying to hold this wave out. I'm wondering whether the Tension Bow Sorrowblade build that's going to come out from him, they are specifically to just looking to combine with that Shattered Glass burst from the Idris. I'm wondering if that's going to be the case here, Humanist, because otherwise, my personal opinion would have been going for the Poison Shiv, try and limit some of the healing from the glaive, and you kite backwards against him with the Idris. But it looks like with the particular build paths that we're seeing open up here, this is all about landing one particular combo. Maybe that's the Holy Nova into the Chakram, obviously the burst damage coming out from glaive with the Afterburn and the Twisted Stroke as well. So imagine, just based on the builds, you think they're looking for a burst-orientated composition coming out from the Nova guys here.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And also, they're like, well, okay, we could go Poison Shiv, kind of disrupt your ability to sustain, but we've got the Grace, right? This is an Echo Grace. If they go into fight with Fountain, that's massive sustain for them. They should be all right in that department, but they're gonna just have to execute cleanly and as a team. I feel like they've been hesitant this whole game, and it does kind of feel like sometimes it's just one at a time, two at a time, and they're not really all cleanly engaging here. But they definitely have an opportunity. I mean, they're 4.5k net worth behind at this point. Rogue does have pretty strong advantage, but with one clean engagement, I mean, the Idris getting to the point now where he can definitely apply that damage and remain elusive.
Yeah, I think the thing is for Nova, it's all about that scaling up potential at this point in time. Nice Impale, but really can't capitalize on it here for Rogue, and they will just end up backing up once more. Going to start to clear out more of this jungle, limit that gold income. Lone Delphi really keen to afterburn over a wall into a Rhyme. Always feel like you should be saving that afterburn to escape these kind of scenarios, but he's pretty keen to get hold of his own jungle where he can.
Oh man, Truth, the Chakram out. Pawn just tanks it up. had he had a Frostburn, maybe slowing them up at this point. Can't say it'd make a difference, but it'd sure feel good, man.
Sure feels good to slow those melee heroes down, but yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of a difference it would make realistically at this point. I don't know how much the way up between the Shatterglass and the Frostburn is actually going to affect the position that Nova are in. They're 4k gold behind. They are really struggling in these teamfights. Nova.
Oh, they find a stun as well. Truth, a whole bunch of damage. Divine Intervention comes out. One heal is going to be enough to found the Shimmer Strike. They actually didn't catch him because of that Shimmer Strike. They are under deep under this turret. A nice Holy Nova connects onto Starboy, the front line for his team, but Hammy gets him with the on point. They're going to take the turret as well. Pawn. No, he does go down. Starboy finding a kill for his team. Starboy, just sell all your items and go offensive. They need to. They need the damage now. Truth. He's got the basic attacks. Hammy lands the on point. He'll get out of there with a feint of heart. And Hammy another on point. Heat-seeking on points. Hammy. He's on fire, man.
Absolutely, level 8, really long range on those as well, kind of equaling the range of that chakra. Let's give credit where credit is due, Humanist. Obviously, this is the point where Rogue is ahead, so they can afford to play like they're ahead, but Starboy, man, he's playing a pretty sick Grace right now. These Holy Novas have been multi-man Holy Novas every time. They've been life-saving, they've been setting up. You know, it had Truth, which we imagine he's having some connection problems right now. Had Truth been on perfect precision mode, Starboy's setting things up so nicely for his team. Just it's the failure to capitalize that's hurting Nova right now.
Starboy's a god, you know. Like what more is there to say? You know, Fuji tried to put a little curse upon Starboy with some Twitter drama, but Starboy was not having any of that. Look at the double stun on the Truth. Truth, you can't get out of here. He's rooted up. Truth destroyed. I don't even know if he could have done anything. Lone Delphi left for dead. Double kill for him. You will. And this is going to be Starboy stunned up down by the Crystal Sentry, trying to protect Starboy. Holy Nova lands onto 2. Rogue are on the chase. Now cue up the Benny Hill theme song here. Well, it's not even needed. No, I thought Starboy could buy a little more time than that. Holds on to the fountain. He'll have Echo ready to go. But this is Nova just getting picked apart, and it's kind of surprising. I mean, if you really look back to their performance at the championship.
Yeah, I mean, look, we saw the same with the Tribe lining gay up as well, because I don't know what that sentence was. We saw the same with the Tribe lineup as well, because they obviously performed really well at live championships, and we saw Nova have the same instance. I mean, look, the first game from Nova was brilliant, Humanist. Just something is triggered, and, you know, you can't help but feel that Truth isn't playing optimally right now, which is leading me to believe, based on some of his actions, that, again, like we've talked about, maybe some issues going on with connection right now. But, you know, like I said, that can't be helped, and Rogue don't, you know, they're not there to pay mercy for internet problems. They're there to win the game, and looks like that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is not to like take anything away from Rogue with my last comment. I think Rogue is a team, the way they're playing right here, right now, they probably could have done pretty well at the championship themselves. So
I mean, I think they're full of talented players in the Rogue lineup. And Evol was, when there was talk about TSM replacing their captain, Evol was the hype. You know, Evol was saying, oh, Evol could be the new TSM captain. So, you know, people really saw Evol as that kind of level of captain. Pon, the original, has been around the Vainglory scene for a very long time, a super respected king, godfather of the jungle, if you will. And I've got to say, Hammy's been a really nice addition to the lineup.
Impale on a Starboy, Hammy on the Truth. Hammy, Rose defense over the top. Truth's getting good damage this time. Chakram, the Shimmer Strike coming out. Truth does get the Divine Intervention. Valkyrie over the top. Truth taken out, though. Evil takes that kill. He gets a nice guillotine wall. Starboy with the Holy Nova buying a bit of time. Pawn with the Winter Spires, the Delphi. After burns his way out of there, they'll trade 1-for-1. About the best fight that Nova's had all game.
You took the words right out of my mouth there, Humanist. A 1-for-1 trade is probably more than they could have hoped for in that situation. It was dumping... I'm not even going to finish that because I was about to mess... Sorry, it's getting late in the UK now. I can't actually say the word ducking, dipping, diving, and dodging. I'm going to say it slowly, Excalibur. Yeah. They just did a lot of dodging that fight, and in Truth specifically, really good use of the ultimate to stop Hammy finding the execute with the feint. It's something that you can do against the weapon power Blackfeather. You can really prevent his ability to execute you by using that ultimate to back off and, you know, close a little bit more distance. And he's got to really impress with the way that they played that fight there. Goodness me, I'm struggling to talk right now, Humanist.
Goodness me. I mean, if I had to speak British English as well, I think I'd probably struggle with it.
Nice me.
You're doing quite well, old chap. this point.
Good fight,
Rogue
good fight.
having their way. Yeah, Evil's gonna miss on the impale. Benediction from Starboy. They're on to Truth. Truth, you gotta avoid the damage here, bud. You're getting chopped down. Truth gets the Holy Nova. Shimmer Strike bang by the time he's over the wall. Truth, good positioning, but Hammy takes him down. Hammy, the heat-seeking missile on the Truth. A double kill, ramping up 20 breaking point stacks. The triple, the ace coming through, and ladies and gentlemen, Rogue just absolutely having their way with Nova.
Oh, Hammy played that so perfectly, knew the moves that Truth was going to make before Truth even made them. Held on to that final Rose offensive to get himself over the wall. He knew that that was the only location and Idris would jump to try and get himself out of danger. Followed him up immediately and looked for that executor. Well, to be honest, once Truth is dead, just given the way that Lone Delphi has built, once Truth is dead, especially in these longer fights where the breaking point does stack up for Hammy, that's it. That's done for the Nova composition. Glaive's just not going to compete on anywhere close to the level that Pon and Hammy are putting out in terms of damage output.
I love Hammy's build. Like, absolutely across the board. The Journey Boots, the Shiver Steel, he's got the
Shiver Steel's
Atlas.
so good.
Huh?
Shiver Steel's so good, dude. No, I was just agreeing with you.
So good. Hammy, actually, he's like, you know what? The boots, I didn't like those so much. I'm going to get something else here. What's he going for? War Treads! He didn't like the Journey Boots. He wanted the War Treads. Team, it's time to end the game.
Facilitating Rhyme, obviously, helps Rhyme get into position to help execute onto that CP Idris as well. So, the Shiver Steel received a buff fairly recently, and that allows him to stick to Truth even more so. So, again, love this build from Hammy. It's working out so well, and it's just almost untouchable in these fights.
Love, love, love. Chakram coming through, connecting onto 2, but it's really not that threatening. Truth should be having a lot more damage at this point in the game. 18 minutes and Afterburn from Delphi back. Here's an opportunity. Blast Shimmer comes through. Truth, you got to dance around. He's got to get back. He gets one Divine Intervention off. Shimmer strikes back to the other side. Evil and Pawn are in super deep. The Crack is still on the Vein Crystal Turret. They've lost Truth. This is Starboy stunned up. Delphi, what can you do? Delphi able to find one. It's Delphi against Hammy, Evil, and a half-health Kraken at this point. Delphi become the god.
Ace.
He cannot do it. An ace for Rogue as they take Nova down here. And the opener for their autumn season, Rogue, a very phenomenal performance.
Yeah, absolutely storms into the VG8. Rogue looking fantastic here as they take their first series win, the first weekend. What an opener for them. Hammy played perfectly, kept his toes about him, always followed Truth's movements, and again, just really capitalized on that mid-game. Nice play from Rogue.
Nice plays from Rogue indeed. Incredible stuff. Well, to go ahead and break that game and the series down, we'll go ahead and throw it over to the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Humanist. Another great series going their way. And, we were asking earlier why people were banning away this Black Feather. What was it about this pick that made it so dominant? I think Hammy gave us a textbook example of why this is such a valuable pick right now, because you can just completely take over a game.
Yeah, and doing more with less. He had 2 offensive items and 10 kills. That's an absolutely insane amount. Like, for so little damage in terms of what's in the inventory, he was able to output so much.
He was. I mean, this build is about sustaining through the team fight, making sure you get your stacks down on a character that you're trying to focus and dealing damage with that. Relying more on your base damage and your survivability through the team fight rather than bursting down a target. That's what this build is about.
It's kind of like the opposite to the CP version of the build, where you're kind of more poking and diving in for a bit of